supercommittee stalemate would mean huge across-the-board cuts to national security programs, but it could actually be a win for one group, governors with ballooning Medicaid budgets. Bloomberg's Hughes joins me from Washington with more on this story. Megan, good afternoon.
And good afternoon, Mark. Bloomberg government, that's our team of Capitol Hill analysts, did take a look specifically at Medicaid. That's, of course, the federal-state partnership providing insurance for the poor. Mark, it costs a huge chunk of change. We're talking about almost $430 billion for states. It makes up 22% of the average state budget. So simply because of its size, it could obviously be a super committee target in finding its $1.2 trillion in cuts. But here's the thing, Mark. If the super committee fails to reach a deal and those cross-the-board cuts kick in, Medicaid is actually left untouched. The S&P actually said in a report last month, quote, from the standpoint of state and local governments' fiscal positions, the structure of the automatic trigger cuts have the potential to be more favorable. Now, some governors, including Haley Barbour of Mississippi, have said they're not necessarily against any federal cuts to Medicaid as long as those costs don't get dumped back on the states. They want more flexibility. As for those cross-the-board cuts, the National Conference of State Legislatures says they would impact other state and local programs.
All of the discretionary programs, housing, education, labor, transportation, all of those discretionary grant programs that state and local governments receive would take that across-the-board cut.
So not necessarily a hands-down win for all governors, but Medicaid costs are ballooning because of this jobs market. 50 million Americans now participate. That's up 19% from back in 2007. Another 20 million Americans are expected by 2019 under the new Obama health plan. Now, one other thing to point out here, Mark, state costs are also really uneven. If you take a look at a state like North Carolina, for example, 37% of that state's budget is taken up by Medicaid, but that's only 7% in Wyoming. And then you take a look at bigger states like New York and Florida, it's about a third of total spending. So it really is a big chunk of change, both for the federal government and for states. Mark.
Megan.